Hey everyone, it's Brian here, and we're talking about claims today on dietary supplements, in particular structure function claims. These are the claims that support mental focus, support healthy cholesterol levels, build strong bones, maybe performance claims. These are typically what most people think about when we say the word claims. Although FDA has specific categories of claims, there's nutrient content claims, there are qualified health claims, but for today's video, we're talking about structure function claims because I think a lot of you are most interested in that type of claim. And we're going to talk about the common questions I get from clients. And typically it's things like, why can't I say my product prevents infections? Or why can't I say that this product does protect you or prevent cold and flus, right? Especially if the product is known to work because of all my patients or subjects in my clinical practice, or maybe all the reviews or feedback I get from all the people I've given my products to. Why can't I make these types of claims? How about this idea of using the word may support or help support? Can't I just add that word into it to help soften the claim, and as a result it's fine because I'm not really making the promise, right? Well, how about I just make stronger claims? Like, what if I used may support and then insert a much stronger claim, because I'm not really making the promise? And to the extent where even some people ask me, like, Brian, can I just say help support asthma or something along those lines? What about testimonials? I get this a lot all the time. Can I post testimonials? Can I post about, surveys or results I've gathered, by sending samples or my products to my friends, family, or even customers or patients? Can I speak to what their benefits are? Can I use it to support a claim? And then another one that I get a lot is around that FDA disclaimer. That disclaimer on all the supplement labels out there where they say, this product has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is intended to treat, prevent, or cure disease or something along those lines, right? What about that statement? I have that statement on the label. It's quite explicit there, and that FDA doesn't approve it. So why can't I make some of these more stronger claims, especially in light of, let's face it, there's a lot of competition out there. They make pretty strong claims. And when they work with a compliance person, whether that's myself or a lawyer or whomever else, the feedback we have is quite different from the market. And don't get me wrong, when I work with clients, I understand that side of things. I understand, there's a backdrop of competition, and also you're a smaller brand. So all of that is part of the equation. But for today's video, I really want to just hit on some of these big themes or big questions. I just think it's really important to kind of just dive into it. We're going to be drawing from two key resources here. First of all, one is the FTC's compliance, like a health products compliance guide. And the other one is FDA's structure function small entity guide. So we're going to be diving all those today. Let's get to it. If this is your first time here, my name is Brian, and it's good to meet you. I've been in the supplement space for 2 decades now, and I help supplement companies grow their product line, their supplement line, their business by navigating FDA and FTC compliance. And we also help brand new entrepreneurs launch their supplement brand. If you want to work together, I'll have links in the description down below. All right, so the first thing I want to go through is, I guess, essentially is set some ground rules here. And when I say I'm setting ground rules, it's not really me, it's FDA and FTC. We're going to go through the small entity compliance guide on structure function claims from FDA, just to give you a sense of what the rules of the game is, right? Or what they are. So let's dive down here to page 4. So if we go into this document, what requirements must I meet to make any of these types of claims for my dietary supplement? There are 3 requirements you must meet. First, the law says you must make these claims if you have substantiation that the claims are truthful and not misleading. This one sentence alone has quite a bit of meat to it. The first thing is that your statements have to be truthful and not misleading. And I'm going to dive into a couple examples here of how something can be misleading even though it's truthful. And the other component is that you need substantiation. So even if you're making a fairly conservative claim, may supports healthy cholesterol levels, it's not enough that, to argue I'm not making a cancer cure claim, right? I'm not making a disease claim. The other component is that you have to have good substantiation, which is clinical trials. And if you haven't seen that, I have another video about the lawsuit against Quincy Biosciences or Prevagen. I have a link or a card up here in the video, or a link in the description down below. But I talk about what substantiation entails. But the call out here is that you need to meet this requirement, substantiation, and that the claims are truthful and not misleading. The other thing you must have is that you must have the substantiation before you make the claims. All right. So you have to keep that on file. Doesn't mean that just submit it to the FDA or send it to anyone, but they are saying by regulation that you better have it on file before you make the claims. Second, you must notify FDA that you are using the claims within 30 days of first marketing your product. And this is where you submit your structure function claims to the FDA. They don't review it. They don't really approve anything. You just have to submit it to the database. It's a notification. All right. And this must be done within 30 days of you going to market. And lastly, the third thing, the claim must include a mandatory disclaimer statement that is provided for in the law. And that statement is referring to that FDA disclaimer that you see on the label. This product has not been reviewed or approved by the FDA, yada, yada, yada. And the call out here is that it's just a technical requirement. That statement is just mandated by the requirement that if you make a structure function claim, you need to put that statement right next to it. And then usually the brands put a little asterisk, and there's an asterisk on the side of the panel of the label, and it's got that disclaimer. All right. That's really the three requirements there. And that's why you also see that statement on a lot of supplement brands. So next I want to talk about structure function claims versus disease claims. So right off the bat, you cannot make a disease or drug claim, all right? And it's here. In this particular blurb, they just answer the question, how do I determine if a claim is a structure function claim or a disease claim? But I really want to just bring this one up here. First, the context of the statement decided from information on the label and in other labeling will determine if the statement is considered to be a disease claim. Second, dietary supplements may not bear disease claims, explicit or implied, unless the claim has undergone pre-market review by FDA and has been authorized or approved under the rules for health claims or drugs as appropriate. So essentially, there's a couple things here, right? There is when you're determining whether your claim is a disease or a regular structure and function claim, it's not enough just to look at the words that you're using, but they want to say that it has to be, you have to evaluate based on the entire context. So any images, logos, taglines, maybe the people that are endorsing your product, what's the impression that they're giving? Now, are they implying some sort of disease or drug situation here? Or is it a legitimate structure function claim? So they're saying it's not just the words, it's the context of everything. And note that, your disease claims could be explicit. Like some people actually have on their product labels to treat Parkinson's disease or something along those lines, or it implies it. Right. So if you are going to not necessarily say it's Parkinson's, but imply through listing all the symptoms of Parkinson's, but not actually saying Parkinson's, for example, that could also imply a disease claim. And they're saying here, the only time you can do this, if you really wanted to, is essentially get it approved as a drug or get, pre-market review by FDA, which no one does. Like they're just going to plug you in and say, you're a drug product. You have to go through all the official channels there. All right. So that's just, for a lot of people that ask, like, Brian, I've got the studies. I know my product works. I know it can help cure asthma or help with eczema, or obesity. Why can't I put this claim on the label? It's substantiated. It's truthful. It's not misleading. Well, here it is. It's just by law, you can't do it. That's really what it is. You can't have a drug or disease claim on a dietary supplement. That's all it is, and that's what this is saying. So I think it's important for us to look at the definition of a disease as defined by the FDA. And they say it's damage to an organ, part, structure, or system of the body such that it does not function properly, e.g. cardiovascular disease, or a state of health leading to such dysfunctioning, e.g. hypertension, except that diseases resulting from essential nutrient deficiencies, e.g. scurvy, pellagra, are not included in this definition. So, this definition is quite broad, and FDA has used this definition to loop or capture terms such as inflammation, infection, viral protection, or protection against viruses. They treat those as diseases, all right, or drug claims. And they've been very, very explicit on this. You can see them in the warning letters. I've been in conferences with FDA where they talk about these things, a long time ago. And so this is the scenario, and this is why even if your product is effective treating some of these disease states, preventing colds, flus, that type of thing, even if you have substantiation, you can't make these types of claims, right? This is where it stands out. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, you see here in this excerpt where they say like there are some diseases that are resulting from essential nutrient deficiencies. They're allowing you to make claims about that if you wanted to, because it's not in their definition of a disease. The thing here is that, when you sell your product on an Amazon or some other, distributor or other online platform, they may not know this requirement, or their algorithms might not know this requirement. They're not experts in the regulation. And so their algorithms may just kick you off because you start talking about scurvy. We don't know until you do it. And I don't think a lot of you are willing to take that chance. And as a result, even though you have this leeway, I suspect there's a lot of brands that don't bother doing that, right? So, it is what it is, but just letting you know about that. All right, now let's jump over to the FTC guidance document and look at how FTC sees your product claims compared to FDA. So this is FTC's Health Products Compliance Guide. Now, there are some differences between how FTC sees these claims versus FDA, but for the most part, they work hand in hand. They work quite closely. And in fact, they bring it up here and how they coordinate with the FDA. And there's a FDA FTC liaison agreement, but there are some differences. We won't necessarily go through these all right now. Let's just jump over here and look at how FTC's claim. So what are their ground rules, right? And the first one is that advertising must be truthful and not misleading, similar to FDA. And before disseminating an ad, advertisers must have some adequate substantiation for all objective product claims conveyed expressly or by implication to consumers acting reasonably. And what does this mean? It means that you need to have substantiation before you market your product. And let's be real, there's a lot of supplement brands out there that don't, right? They're underdosed. They didn't do the research. They're just trying to capture a particular trend. Like think about mangosteen. If some of you remember mangosteen, that was a really hot weight loss type ingredient. Even apple cider vinegar, at least, several years ago, like before the apple cider vinegar craze came out, I know that there was really, really low evidence about apple cider vinegar. I'm talking about like 2010 or so, 2014. And so a lot of brands, they just make the claims that have kind of caught on, throw that on the label and then see where it takes them. But the reality here is that the expectation that you have to have substantiation prior to going to that. And I think a part of that, what that tells me is that you want to understand what your claims are first, then formulate to those claims. And a lot of people don't do that, right? Like that's just the reality of the market currently. I know a lot of you are doing that now that we know what it is. And it's actually much better. It gives you more leeway, it gives you more substantiation. You can then show this to your investor. You can show this to anybody who's asking you. Like you're just a much better position. So one thing I want to bring to light here is that an ad can be truthful, but also misleading. So how is that possible? And FTC kind of goes into that a little bit here. A deceptive ad is one that contains a material misrepresentation or omission that is likely to mislead consumers acting reasonably under the circumstances. So, when we talk about how our product is safe, like I've seen some supplements out there in the market that says safe, no side effects. Well, guess what? There's a lot of other products just like yours that is also safe. And in fact, how FDA sees is that if it wasn't safe, it shouldn't be in the market. So in essence, all the products on the market are safe. And for you to amplify that message and have a logo or something about safety, it implies that your product is better because it's safer than all the other products, when in fact, it's just as safe as any other product. And as a result, even though your product is safe, so it's truthful, it is misleading because now you're giving the consumer, a reasonable consumer, the impression that your product is better, is safer than the competitors, when in fact it's pretty much just the same amount of safe, right? So that's one example of it. Sometimes I've seen some scenarios where they omit information. They have an example here in this guidance document. So for example, it's a weight loss supplement, and you talk about all the studies and the findings of it. And you see that, the before and after pictures, you lost 20 pounds, and maybe that was true for one person, but the question is it true for the vast majority of people taking the product? And to that point, sometimes the studies, they give the supplement, but they also make that particular subject exercise and eat a calorie restricted diet, and they don't talk about the calorie restricted diet or the exercise component. They only emphasize the ingestion of the supplement. So while it's still true, it is misleading because they are omitting information, and that's not presented to the consumer. Now, I know in the scope of today's video, we're speaking more to the structure function claims, like the health type claims on a supplement, but FTC does say here that advertising law applies to all products and claims. So even though the video we're talking about structure function claims, just know that FTC is looking at all the claims on your label or your marketing. And sometimes these claims have nothing related to the health benefit. Maybe you just want to talk about how your product is 100% natural or contaminant free or doesn't contain fillers. Even though they aren't structure function claims, FTC is still going to apply these requirements to those types of claims. So that's just something to keep in mind here. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk about identifying express and implied claims. All right, so express claims are the actual languages, statements, words you use and you put on your marketing, right? Or on your label or on your website. And that's expressly stated, right? But then there are other claims that are implied. And we talked about this already in the FDA guidance document. And so, what's the net impression, right? Like what's the overall situation that we're seeing here? It's one thing for you to say that your product is going to support healthy cholesterol levels. It's another thing to have a doctor in the ad say it with the lab coat, the stethoscope, maybe his name and credentials on the bottom. That could change things a lot because there's an implied claim that maybe this product is almost as good as, a statin drug, for example. Now, you may not think that that's what it's doing, but the thing here, and I bring this up all the time, is, in this world of gray, where you interpret it the way you want to as the brand owner, guess what? Lawyers, FTC, other agencies, competitors are going to interpret it the way that they want to. And yes, the way that a marketing message may be perceived could be, essentially infinite. The clause here is that it's to the reasonable consumer. So yeah, if you have, that guy that looks like a doctor, he's in his medical office and he's touting the benefits of your supplement, there could be the chance it'd be implied that this is a drug product or similar to that, or you're making drug-like claims or positioning as good as another drug. And so that's something to keep in mind. Express and implied claims. The implied claims here, images, logos, I talked about that, maybe taglines, maybe just the feel and look of the brand. In some cases you see like that, some supplement brands, they put this the dagger with the two snakes, that old school pharmaceutical symbol. Even though maybe everything else is to code, but you put that logo there, or you use the word pharmaceutical grade, XYZ, all of these terms, even though you're not expressly saying that your product is going to lower cholesterol, and I'm just using that as an example, but all the other things may make it feel like your product is a drug product. And that's the implied claims world. So we have to be really careful of that. And which is why when a lot of clients, they just send me screenshots or like just send me the text of what they want to say, it's really important for me to say, okay, what's the context here? Who's looking at it? Who is the intended audience? Where are we posting this? What are the pictures that is being, that's being used in conjunction with it? Can I see the entire label? Can I see the website? All of these things are important to get a general net impression. So here under FTC law, a marketer is equally responsible for the accuracy of claims suggested or reasonably implied in advertising. Marketers can't suggest benefits, safety, or other characteristics about their product indirectly that they couldn't claim directly. So essentially, an implied claim is going to be treated equally as an express claim, right? So that's how they're going to do it. And even though you think you're being clever by implying something and not saying something, FTC would say, well, it's the same as you actually just saying it. So further on, FTC law focuses not on the marketer's intent, but on the consumer's understanding. It's interesting here because what this means is that it doesn't matter what the words are. What matters to FTC is how did the consumers perceive that, right? So for example, the classical old school infomercial where you had, the before and after picture, one guy is like 40 pounds, big belly hanging out, the side profile, the classic picture, and then they take the supplement for a couple of weeks and now they're super thin, cut, all of that stuff, right? And then you have the fine print that says, well, it was a clinical study, or like this person did all this exercise and ate this diet, and who knows whatever else was in the fine print. FTC doesn't care about the fine print. They're going to say, well, the consumer's not going to be able to see that, right? The consumer just, and then when you look at the voiceover, the music, the whole net impression of the infomercial, they're saying, no, the consumer's really just going to think that taking your supplement is what's going to give you the result, not the exercise and the diet in conjunction with the supplements. When identifying the claims conveyed by an ad, marketers shouldn't focus narrowly on individual phrases or statements, but rather should consider each ad as a whole, assessing the net impression conveyed by all the elements of this ad, including the text, product name, charts, graphs, and other images. Yeah, and they give you an example here. A brochure for a weight loss product shows images of doctors in white lab coats looking through microscopes, molecular structures, and a stack of medical journals. These images give an impression of scientific legitimacy and likely convey an implied claim that the product has been clinically proven to be effective for weight loss, right? And they're going to go after you even though maybe you didn't technically say it's clinically proven or it's for weight loss. Maybe you just want to say it supports healthy weight management. But when you have all these other aspects, the images and the doctors and the lab coats, it's a different claim. And FTC is going to measure you on that different claim. Moving on, when to disclose qualifying information. So here we mentioned an ad can also be deceptive because of what it fails to say. And I talked about that earlier. So you can still be truthful, but still misleading. An example of that here, let's see, we'll use this one. And I think I talked about this actually. The marketer of a weight loss supplement cites a placebo-controlled, double-blind clinical study in an ad as demonstrating the product resulted in an average weight loss of 12 pounds over an 8-week period. The weight loss for the treatment group was in fact significantly greater than for the control subjects. However, both the control and test subjects engaged in regular exercise and followed a restricted calorie diet as part of the study regimen. The ad should make clear that users of the supplement will also need to reduce calories and engage in regular exercise to achieve similar results. Here's another one, and this is good because some products do need warning statements. An energy drink contains an ingredient when consumed daily over an extended period can result in significant increases in blood pressure. Even absent any representation about the product's safety, the marketer should disclose this potentially serious risk. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the relevance of the evidence to the specific product and claim, right? Essentially what happens is clients come to me and they say, hey, Brian, I do have substantiation, check it out. And they show me their rat studies, their test tube studies, their in vitro studies, right? They're not human clinical studies. And again, I talked about this in my other videos. And in some cases, what happens is they get the studies from an ingredient supplier, right? The ingredient supplier is saying this ingredient is going to help with weight loss. And here are the studies that we have, and they tout that and they say that, yeah, you can go make these claims. Now, remember, these ingredient suppliers, they're not at the same level as a supplement brand when it comes to enforcement because the ingredient supplier is marketing not to the average consumer. They're marketing to another business. It's B2B. Whereas FTC, FDA, they really care more about B2C, right? They're trying to protect the consumer. And so these ingredient suppliers might provide studies, and I see these studies, and guess what? The subpopulation, the subjects, they are in a diseased state. Maybe they have obesity, maybe they have heart disease. It's mentioned in the study. Sometimes the studies use a higher dosage than what is actually than what they're actually marketing in their brochures. And so let's just say, for example, they're saying you can use 10 milligrams of our formula, like of our ingredient in your formula. And that's kind of what the proposed dosage or suggested dosage is in your formulation. But when you look at the studies, it's actually 25 milligrams. Now, we being the supplement brand or the entrepreneur, we don't go the extra level and go into the studies per se and look at the actual dose. We just trust the information, that fancy brochure from that ingredient supply. We trust that, right? Oh, they say to formulate with 10 milligrams or 15 milligrams or whatever, not 25 milligrams. So I'm just going to put that in my formula. Someone like myself, I see your formula. It's 15 milligrams, but I look at the studies. I don't trust the brochure. I go to the studies and I'm like, okay, well, they did it in obese people and they put 25 milligrams of it. And so the call out here is that, FTC is watching for this too, right? Advertisers should ask questions such as, how do the dosage and formulation of the advertised product compare to the products used in the study? Is the ingredient or combination of the ingredients in the advertised product the same as what was used in the study? Is the advertised product administered in the same manner as the product in the study? How well do the outcomes tested in the study relate to the specific benefits advertised? Does the study population reflect the characteristics of the population targeted by the ad? So this is really important. Again, this is why I work backwards. I think about what's the end in mind, what's the finished product going to look like, what's it going to say, and then we engineer to those claims. And because this is the time, right, when we have to change the dose and all that stuff. This is the time versus having a finished product, already launched that, got in trouble. Now we have to do the substantiation work and then realize we can't say this claim, we can't say this claim, we can't say this claim. And now you have to remove those claims and soften and change the label. We want to avoid that mess. We want to build a product that can get you the claims that you want. Yeah, as you can tell, it's crazy about how much information is out there. It really is, but a lot of brands don't factor these things in. They don't know to look at this. They just look at their competitors who don't know the rules. They copy the competitors, and you have this huge pool of non-compliant brands, and then your brand succeeds. Then the eyeballs get on you. Then the advertising agencies get on you. Then the competitors get on you. And it's just a whole mess that we want to avoid. All right, let's switch gears again and talk about consumer testimonials, expert endorsements, because I think this is really important here. Let's see. So here's from FTC, right? Advertisers are liable for the misleading use of endorsements, whether in traditional advertising, media like TV and print, on the internet and social media, or in other forms of marketing. An overarching principle is that advertisers should not make claims through consumer testimonials or expert endorsements that would be deceptive or couldn't be substantiated if the advertiser made them directly. So essentially, if you are going to repost a testimonial or brag about a testimonial, or in some cases, I know some websites just kind of post the testimonials as they come in. They have no control, in essence, of it. But if there's a particular testimonial that is very egregious, makes grandiose promises, or at least implies that FTC is going to look at that claim, that testimonial, as a claim, even though you didn't make it. And I know that seems kind of unfair. I get it. But also to that point, we have to screen our testimonials. But, even if we didn't do that, don't repost the one wonderful testimonial that helped that customer alleviate their depression. Right? There's a difference there. Once you repost, and I know FDA has even gone even further. So like if you, retweet it, if you share a post, if you like a post, that's you endorsing that testimonial, and then that testimonial becomes the claim that you're making. Now, what about the scenario where maybe you did get a lot of reviews or customer feedback, patient feedback, and that's your proof that your product is effective? Well, here's an example here. Whoops, where did it go? Example 39. A website advertising a smartphone app features testimonials from satisfied customers who say that after using the app at bedtime for less than a week, their insomnia went away and they slept soundly through the night. These testimonials don't constitute substantiation. The advertiser must have competent and reliable scientific evidence that its product is effective in treating insomnia. And furthermore, to add to that, anecdotal evidence about the individual experience of consumers, including surveys of consumer experiences, are never sufficient to substantiate claims about the effects of a health product. Even if consumers' experiences are genuine, They may be attributable to a placebo effect or other factors unrelated to their product. For the same reason, a healthcare practitioner's observations about the effect of a health product on a patient is anecdotal and doesn't provide evidence of a causal relationship. Individual experiences aren't a substitute for scientific research. Yeah, and I know a lot of people, especially those of you that have a practice, that are professionals in your respective space and area of expertise, you may disagree with this. Totally get it. Again, I'm just relaying FTC's point of view. They want to see the PubMed results. They want to see the journal articles. They want to see any other clinical studies that may be confidential, but they want to see the actual study and the results. That's important to them. They don't really factor in the reviews or the feedback from your subjects or your patients, your consumers. And so even if you were to do a study, maybe a survey, you sent out your samples to 1,000 people and they all reported some XYZ benefit. Unfortunately, if there are no studies to substantiate that XYZ benefit, this is going to be a huge vulnerability for you. Now, again, is that fair? I don't know, but I do think that if you did have that survey, I think there's something promising here that might say, you know what, it might be time to invest in something more formal and therefore make it so that it becomes more scientifically sound and just help substantiate a claim that you may want to be interested in investing in. The common topic or pushback that I get a lot is like, Brian, I've got that FDA disclaimer, right? That this product has not been evaluated by the FDA. I've got that disclaimer on my website. It's everywhere on the bottom footer there. I've also got on my label. So doesn't that give me the leeway or freedom to say what I want to say, right? Doesn't that protect me in any way? And here's your answer. Marketers should be aware that the DSHEA disclaimer, DSHEA being the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, and that's the regulatory framework of which we have to abide to for dietary supplements, manufacturing, marketing, labeling, etc. The DSHEA disclaimer or similar statements won't cure an otherwise deceptive ad, particularly where the deception concerns claims about the health-related benefit of a product. So essentially, it doesn't really protect you, all right? Like I said, and I shown earlier with the FDA guidance document, it's just a technical regulatory requirement that you have that disclaimer, but it doesn't protect you or buffer you in any way. You still want to make sure that your ad is truthful and not misleading, and you're satisfying all these other things, right? I mean, if I do get pushback about this a lot, and I get it, and some people say like it does provide information to the consumer. They know what they're getting themselves into. This is a dietary supplement. It's not a drug, right? Why do I have to be so careful everywhere else if I've got that disclaimer? And if, at the same time, I understand FTC's standpoint. I mean, if you were to buy a product for your kid, your elderly parent or grandparent, you would think that manufacturer is doing the right things, that they're formulating at efficacious doses, they're making sure it's safe, they're not deceiving you with weird ads, they're doing all the right things to make sure that you are properly informed so you can buy the right product that you believe is safe and effective. For some reason, that logic kind of is thrown out the window sometimes with some of the clients that somehow I cross paths with. We're like, but why can't I do this? But wow, but I tried that. And, unfortunately, we just can't do that. And you can see FTC has been pretty clear about that, right? We would want to follow these rules. I think it's important for the brand to do that. So it's just something to think about. Okay, it depends on which side of the fence you are on. And I respect both. And those of you that work with me know I appreciate both scenarios. And we try to find that middle ground, right? But just wanted to share this one out. So anyway, let's move on to the next topic here. And I think a lot of you are going to be very eager to know if you can use words like may support, help support, and how does that buffer you, if at all? To that, let's talk about qualifying information or information that explains or limits the applicability of an ad claim. The qualifying information should be sufficiently simple and clear that consumers not only notice it, but also understands its significance, right? Remember, earlier I said it's, FTC looks at not what you say, but what the reasonable consumer will take away. So the question is, will the consumer understand the significance of your qualifying information, right? And they further go on to say vague qualifying terms are inadequate. For example, it's not enough to say that the product may have the claim benefit or helps achieve the claim benefit. Similarly, consumers are likely to interpret modifiers such as promising, preliminary, initial, or pilot as positive product attributes rather than as substantial disclaimers about the state of the science behind a claim, particularly when the study is positively touted in the ad. So, yeah, this is really important. May have the claim benefit or helps achieve the claim benefit. Sometimes that's not enough, right? And if your claims are not well substantiated, may and helps doesn't really protect you, right? Similarly, and this is where they talk about promising, preliminary. Remember, it's not what you say; it's what the impression was from the consumer. So let's just say that you found this really cool ingredient, and you want to use this new ingredient that no one else has really looked at. You want to use it in your supplement. But the studies out there are really limited, like nothing except one study that you found. It was recently done, small number of subjects, but they found pretty decent results. FTC says it's important to give enough information so the consumers know that it was only one study, right? Like you and I both know the science isn't settled on one study, right? The science is settled on multiple studies, lots of experts all agreeing on that general consensus. That's important, right? If we don't have that, we're a little bit weary of the science. So to that point, some brands, what they'll do is they'll say promising or preliminary study or initial study or pilot study. And to you and me, someone that's in this field, that's in this industry, we get a sense of we know what this means. But the average reasonable consumer may not. They might think the word pilot study is cool, like a jet pilot. Maybe they're like breaking down barriers and this is new, and therefore the consumer isn't reading the word pilot. Like they're reading it, but they're not taking it away. Just like they're not, they're reading the word helps, but not taking the word helps away or may support. They're taking the other part away, right? Oh, healthy cholesterol levels. Okay, that's going to lower cholesterol levels. That's what they're thinking, right? Let's be real. And so when we use initial, preliminary, promising, to FTC, it's like this isn't enough, right? The consumer is going to interpret this as if, especially like a word like promising, that the science is settled. And that's the thing here. So this is really important. So I think, number one is the support, may support, help support. That doesn't really buffer you. You still need to have the substantiation component. It still needs to be truthful and not misleading and all that stuff. And then there's other qualifiers that you may need. And you just have to watch the language, because I see this a lot. I know some people say to me like, "Oh, Brian, what if I just use clinically studied?" Because the studies in the clinical trials didn't find a great result, like a small significant finding or no significant finding at all. But technically, the reality, literally speaking, it was studied in a clinical trial. Therefore, can't I just say clinically studied? Or maybe the level of the ingredient I have is at a subtherapeutic amount. It doesn't reflect the amount in the study. So, it is in the study. Can I say clinically studied? And this is why I don't like the term clinically studied. I see clinically studied, even though you and I both literally know it's differently than clinically proven. FTC can interpret them synonymously. They can treat them similarly because the consumer, they might not know the nuance. When they're reading the ad, they're skimming it. In their mind, they read, or in their mouth or whatever it is in our brain when we're reading out loud, they're reading clinically studied, but they're taking away, this must be clinically proven. That's the thing. And remember, FTC is looking at the net impression. All right. So there you go. Lots to throw at you. I'm not expecting you guys to digest all of this, but, or read this entire guidance document or the FDA structure function guidance document. That's why I'm here to do this video. I've got other videos. I talk about the Prevagen, the Quincy sciences that goes into the FTC guidance document, this one, but more on what it takes to substantiate a claim. But anyway, I hope you found this useful. Be sure to watch all my other videos on YouTube. It was a pleasure to see you again. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.